Hey everybody, and welcome to the second video in which we are going to continue modeling our custom chair. In this video we're going to continue where we stopped in the first video, so in case you haven't watched that one, go ahead and check it out. So in the first video, this is where we actually ended up. We have this chair, and we used some cloth simulation to get these cushions, and we got some basic modeling to get the rest of these elements. Now, before we continue on with this model, I just want to do a few minor tweaks. So this tweak here would just simply be, I don't want to have this dip, so basically just select these handles here, move them around, make sure they just don't overlap over here, like so. That's fine. And once that is done, I want to just add in a tiny bit of change for this thing. There we go. So I'm going to have this thing more to the outside, like so. And I'm happy with this. All right, so what I want to do here is basically I want to make a low poly model that I can later bake all of the details onto this. And as it is right now, I can probably use it as it is because it's really not that heavy, but I want to simplify this. So what I'm going to do is, just so I know what I'm having at the moment, is I'm going to go configure viewports. In here, in statistics, take on total plus selection and click OK. Now by pressing the 7 on our keyboard, I can see that this model has 33,000 polygons. That is actually not too heavy, and I'm pretty sure that I can put this thing inside Unreal and use it as it is. But for this, I actually want to go ahead and simplify it even more so it's even lighter. You've actually heard me say the phrase simplify a couple of times instead of using the phrase retopology, because simply we're not going to be retopologizing this thing per se, because since we made it with simple box modeling and adding in turbo smooth, we can simply go in and reduce the number of polygons manually. So before I do this, what I'm going to do is select everything, and in my layers, I'm going to create a new layer and call this layer HP, or high poly. And now I want to copy all of these and put them on a separate layer called LP, or low poly. Now, but before I do that, I actually want to go in here, drop in an edit poly on top of the cloth, and that should help it so we don't get any issues when we are copying this. So Control V and set it at copy. And let's see if this thing, when we isolate it, yeah, we have the problem. So as you can see, these things here that we just copied are not following with the simulation. So I'm going to delete again. And now right click, convert to an editable poly. And this should help with these retaining their form. So again, Control V, copy, and put them into an LP folder. Now I'm going to hide the HP, and put it to the side. So what this means is now that I can start working on simplifying these individually one by one. And as soon as I simplify one, I can just hide it. Now the thing is that I actually don't want to change these guys. So these three, I'm going to right click and hide selection. So in the LP, I can see that these three have been done. Now, another thing that I want to delete is the base for the simulation. I won't be needing it. This one and this one. So those are not needed, so I can delete those. All right, so what we're left with is this thing. Put this thing on the side. And let's start by doing this, the most simple one. Wherever we have straight or flat surface, we don't need all of these edges. So I'm going to hold down Control and select all of these rings, double click, We select the entire loop, hold on Control and backspace. That is going to delete those edges without deleting the adjacent polygons. Do the same thing for this side on the bottom as well. Control backspace, and we got rid of that one as well. So what happens now is we decrease the number of polygons, but if we want, it's not really needed, but if we want, we can go ahead and further decrease the number of polygons here by just skipping one, like so. Control backspace again. As you can see, it really doesn't change too much of the form that we have here. So again, skip one, delete one, Control backspace, and there we go. We even simplified this further. All right, so with this, now it's down to 224 polygons. We can do the same thing for these two guys as well. Again, if you don't want to watch me do this thing, feel free and skip ahead. But I'm not really a big fan of skipping stuff that I do off video, because sometimes I get to see something or find a way to fix a particular problem. But in this case, I don't really think there's going to be any problems. But hey, if you're here, enjoy watching me do this. And I do know it's a bit of a hassle to do it. It's a bit of a drag, but still. Oops, here's a problem. I just selected both of these guys, and that could have made a bit of a problem for me, but good thing we noticed it. So skip that. Control backspace. There you go. So there we go again. All right, awesome. Control backspace. Cool. We can work with this. And this one goes with the same approach. And I do know, again, I'm going to say, I do know this is a bit of a tedious work, but even though it takes time, in the end, it will help us get a cleaner and lighter model that we can use for baking later on. So again, go over it, skip one, select one, skip one, select one. There you go. Up. This one as well, and this one. Awesome. I think with this we got all of them. Yep. So those three are now done, so I can select them and hide them. The middle piece over here, from what I can see, I have a bit of a problem here. The problem can easily be dealt with by just going down to the symmetry and increasing the threshold for welding. As you can see, this straight ahead just went and fixed our issue. Awesome. So we don't have to go in and dive into that. All right, so now simplifying this thing, again, select all of the edges that are on a flat surface, Control backspace, we'll get rid of those guys. Another thing, we really don't need all of these edges because they will not be doing anything to change the silhouette of our model. So go ahead, select them all. As such, Control backspace, and gets rid of all of those guys. Now, I can probably go ahead and do this manually, but let's see what happens if we go over to the modeling ribbon and click on this piece over here where it says dot ring. This is going to select skip one, select one, skip one, select one, and let's see if that thing is going to work, because usually if the edges are even, now when I press loop, yeah, it selects everything. So that's gonna be a bit of a problem to approach it that way. So what we can do for this is go ahead and do it manually. So it's gonna be easier and faster. So just skip one, select one, skip one, select one. That way we decrease the number of edges and we don't screw around with the silhouette or the form of the chair. There we go. Again, we can go ahead and do this thing for the other side as well. Or we can just simply come in and use a symmetry modifier. There we go. Actually, I do want to use a symmetry modifier for this. But before that, I want to center this. And now use a symmetry modifier. Put it in the Z. And there we go. Now this thing just simplified the rest of this, which is nice. I can even further simplify it, but there is really no need. Just select these guys, delete, and there we go. We have a nice simplified version of that thing. So hide the selection, and the last thing that we're left with is the stand for the chair. This piece is a bit more, well, I don't want to say complicated, but it takes a bit more work to do. But again, it's the same principle as the previous one. Just go ahead, select all of the edges that are really on a flat surface, like these guys, and control backspace. That is going to get rid of those. If it gives you some splotches like this, it's basically issues with the smoothing group. So select everything and just hit on the clear all. That's going to get rid of those splotches. Now, next thing that I want to do is decrease the number of these lines. So again, doing the same thing. Even though they are all here on this side and really don't make much of a difference here, if I go ahead and remove all of these, it's going to screw up with the flow of this line. So I want to make sure I don't screw this line too much. So that's why we're doing the same thing where we skip one line and select the other one. So like so, control backspace. And we just decreased this thing for a lot of polygons. Now on this portion over here, we don't really need all of these edges because they're not giving it anything to the shape of this. So I can select all of these edges like so, control backspace, and this will not change the shape of our model. It is only going to remove the extra edges. Again, for these guys are going to follow the same logic. So we can select all of those. There we go. And this one. Control backspace. Well, it does change the size a tiny bit, but it's really not that important, so we can live with that change. All right, so go in over here, and let's see how this thing is gonna look like once we remove these edges. Oh, we want to be careful around here, though. I want to skip those guys. Control backspace for that. All right. That didn't change too much. Now, since these guys are defining a curve, I do want to remove them, but let's just see how this thing is going to affect the shape. It's okay. Really not that important, so we can live with that. All right. I'm actually happy with how this thing turned out to be. All right, so that's cool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhide everything here. And as it is, if I select all of the edges here, or all the elements, I'm going to see that this thing is 5,624 polygons, and we started off with 30,000 or 29,000. So we skimped off a good 25,000 polygons, and we made this chair a bit lighter. Now, before I go on to the next phase of unwrapping this chair, I want to add in a few more smaller details that I think would be nice to have here. And that is basically a few metal plates for this piece, which would be used to connect the headpiece, the back, and the bottom. Nothing too complex, I just want to get that thing out there. So for this, I'm going to reuse the existing geometry here. So let's go ahead and select that thing, select this thing, and detach this, hide this. I want to detach that as soon as I find the detach button now. There we go. So detach as a clone. For this, I'm going to use a shell. Yep, this can work. Edit poly. I'm going to get rid of these guys. They're really not needed. I'm going to put a not a shell, but a symmetry, so I can only work on one side. There we go. So now, okay, I guess it's whenever we move this side. No, it was this side. Yeah, whatever we do this side, the symmetry is going to deal with the other side, which is what we want, because I want to get this thing a bit lower. Add in one edge over there and extrude this thing outwards like so. All right, nothing too complex, as you can see. We can use this thing as the low poly. I can copy it once, put it in my HP now. Now hide it, unhide the high poly. And for the high poly, I'm just going to use a turbo smooth with the smoothing groups. There we go, like so. And just make sure that all of these guys have a separate smoothing group, like that. This one and this one. All right. Okay. Well, actually, these two should have separate ones as well. And there we go. Now we can use this thing as the high poly for a chair. And I would probably even model some screws for this thing. But later on, when we do the textures, we will use a normal map to get those screws in here. So for now, I'm not going to deal with this. And just to make it even more simpler, so I don't have to redo the whole thing again, I'm just going to go ahead and move this thing into position. Although, come to think of it, it would probably be a better idea to go in and do this thing again for this piece, which I probably might even do, but off screen, because there's no need for you to just watch me do the same thing that I just did. We'll just try to do this with a simple move. If this thing doesn't conform as well, we can spend a bit more time to get it to conform, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing. So once we have that, we have our model ready to be brought to the next stage in which we are going to unwrap the whole thing. So all in all, I'm happy with how this thing is developing, and I think I can call this thing done for now. So I hope you guys had fun and you managed to learn something new in the process. If you do have any questions, leave them below. I will meet you in the comment section of this video. And if you enjoyed the video, then please click the like button. And if you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video, in which we will continue working on this same model. Cheers.